Thank you again for attending tonight's event. Our next panel has to do with law enforcement. This is law enforcement and Western Piedmont Council of Government code enforcement, law enforcement approach to homelessness, challenges and solutions. So we know that law enforcement are pretty much the first to engage with these folks, with the homeless population. And I think it's important to hear and understand what law enforcement has to do and code enforcement has to deal with. So the purpose of this panel is to have this discussion with several members from Caldwell County and different agencies. So gentlemen, if you don't mind, first we'll start with Captain Kirby here. Introduce yourself and who do you represent? How long have you been in law enforcement? All that good stuff.
All that good stuff. I'm Captain Kirby with the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office. I've been in law enforcement since 2004, so roughly 20 years. Up and down career, started in the jail, worked my way up where I'm at now, over patrol. I served Caldwell County, the entire county, which is about 475 square miles, and 82,000 plus citizens.
Thank you.
Brandon Nelson, I'm the Chief of Police for Hudson. I've been in law enforcement coming up on 10 years now, and Hudson is just south of Lenore.
Andy Wilson, Lenore Police Department, the police major. I've been in law enforcement with the Lenore Police Department for a little over 21 years. And so my current responsibility is operations of basically the entire police department.
Thank you.
Kurt Willis, I'm the code enforcement manager with the Western Piedmont Council of Governments. Currently work Road Hiss, Sawmills, Hudson, Gamble, Cages Mountain, Cedar Rock, and the outlying Caldwell County areas.
We'll start back here at the beginning with you, Captain. On a typical day, what are your interactions with the homeless, and what does it look like in Caldwell County?
On a typical day, normally we respond to the citizens in the county calling for somebody trespassing. They seen somebody suspicious walking down the street. Just because we're walking down the street, it makes them suspicious. Find people sleeping under bridges, car wash bays, park benches, gazebos in the sawmills area, and that's our typical interaction. And I wouldn't say it's daily, but I'd say every other day maybe.
Chief?
So same thing in Hudson. It's the typical, you'll see people walking through town. You'll see people inside of businesses sometimes. Occasionally we'll find people sleeping at night, even in cars at the park or outside of vehicles under some kind of coverage, maybe a closed business may be providing for them.
Much like Chief Nelson and Captain Kirby, we get quite a few calls for service that may be related to the sighting of someone that may be panhandling or a structure that has been built on private or public property. But we also take a proactive approach, and we have officers that go out and look in common places for people, whether it be under bridges or along our greenways or other areas, and try to take that proactive approach to locating in order for certain processes to take place.
Kurt, I know it's a little different for you.
It's a little different for me. Mine are almost always complaint-based, and it will be a citizen's complaint that is based on solid waste violations or other nuisance violations, to where I have to go look at it from a health and a safety standpoint.
Okay. Are there, the next question is, are there any legal or ethical considerations made when enforcing laws related to loitering, panhandling, or camping in the public spaces within the county or local cities or towns? What are the legal and ethical considerations made when enforcing these laws? Captain.
Legal and ethical considerations that we take into effect is, we've arrested people in Caldwell County for panhandling, and what we see with panhandling, I think was the only one we've had at Caldwell County Sheriff's Office to date, was a guy that dropped off from Cheryl's Ford in a brand new Beamer that somebody seen, and had a backpack full of cash, stacks of food where somebody was just left out, and all he was after was the cash. But the ethical part of that is making sure that these people aren't panhandling and taking away from the resources that we have to provide for our actual citizens that are in need, or in fact homeless, or just in a bad situation or a bad way with their life.
And some things to keep in mind is not everything they do is illegal. So walking down the street, going in businesses, even if someone's homeless, they may still have the resources to go inside of businesses and buy food for themselves. So this stuff's not illegal. But then some of the things that happen where they're outside of businesses for an extended period of time, loitering, panhandling, camping in the parks, camping in public places, that's when it starts to become illegal. And you have to make that decision between ethical and what the law says to try to keep the bounds right.
Yeah, to really piggyback on both Chief and the Captain, that not everything that someone thinks is illegal necessarily is. The differences in private property versus public property, and the differences in that the ability to be able to enforce certain laws on private property, be it trespassing. And so, and it really goes into panhandling. There are Supreme Court cases that talk about panhandling and the verbiage on signs, and are they effectively forcing their way on someone? Someone holding up a sign that says something, God bless you, and someone gives them money, may or may not fit those descriptions. And so we have to be very cautious, and we have to be very smart in how we address some of those issues.
Right, of course, yeah. Kurt?
So on the public spaces, I'm going to have very little input on it. I mainly deal with private property, public spaces, law enforcement. So my complaints, I might do an initial investigation and then forward it on to the appropriate authority, but I mainly focus on private property.
And I think that's key, is understanding the rules between the public and the private sector, public property versus private property, and that it can be blurry at times, and I can see how that can cause some questions. The next question, Kurt, I'm going to start with you on this one. I believe we have a slide of it. Knowing that there's no magic formula, how do law enforcement agencies effectively balance compassion and enforcement when addressing issues related to homelessness?
So I try to approach it and treat everyone with respect regardless of what their situation is. That's how I first do it. That I'm very open and honest with them. Like I said, I'm dealing on private property, and it's always on a complaint basis. So I'm firm with them, and I explain the process to them and how it's going to work, and I'm honest with them. The main thing to realize is that they may have everything they own with them, so I'm not there to throw them off the property. I'm going to deal directly with the property owner, but we have to, with that in mind, I'm going to go forward with my process to get compliance with the local ordinances. So the main thing I do is I want to treat them respectfully, treat them honestly so they know and they're prepared for whatever's going to happen next. And I want to know that every time they're forced to relocate, it's like they're starting all over again if they don't get to carry their paperwork and everything else that's important to them with them.
Because when you'll deal with a complaint like this is what you're walking into. You'll have to figure out how to deal with that. Major Wilson, what about you? I know no magic formula. How do you effectively balance compassion and enforcement when addressing these issues?
So for us, it really begins with the culture of the agency and the leadership direction. We understand that no kids that we deal with in elementary schools or the middle schools or the high schools, none of those kids have dreams and aspirations of being homeless, right? And so through the culture of the agency and treating people with respect and compassion and understanding they're not necessarily there because that's what they aspire to be. I think it was talked about in panel 1 that there are people that are 1, 2 house payments, car payments, whatever, one catastrophic event from possibly being in the same situation. And so I think we have to realize that. But in balance with upholding the law, when people, no matter if they're unsheltered or homeless or not, if they're victimizing our communities and victimizing our people, then that's when you have to enforce the law. We can't allow it, but there are things that come into play to where compassion and choice comes into play. Basically, arresting someone or trying to find another out that may be better suited.
Chief.
So the words understanding, respect, that's something we heard a lot in the last panel. It's something we've already heard a lot in this panel, and I'm sure we'll hear it a lot in the future panels. That's key, respect one another. Unfortunately, though, when law enforcement is called to a scene where there's illegal activity taking place, the caller is expecting law enforcement to do something about it. Our officers, we hardly ever charge someone on the first offense. It's always normally we warn them, and then, if they don't heed the warning, then that's the only, it's our outcome. The big thing is just respect and make sure that we're getting everything on the same page between all the agencies.
Captain.
Well, as officers, sheriff, it stands, we're of the people, for the people. And I know that might sound cliche, but we're elected by the citizens of this county to uphold the laws. And whenever it comes time to do that, we're going to have to do it regardless of the circumstances. However, we reach out to treat every citizen, every person we encounter with fairness and compassion. And like they said, that goes the longest, because if you show somebody you're there to help, instead of just throwing them in jail just because somebody's homeless, jail's not the answer. Some situations our hands are tied and we have to. However, working with the COG and all these other agencies from the first panel, that's our resource bank that we go to find out what we have to offer them to steer them away from the streets, because somebody wants to see there's somebody's mother, there's somebody's father, there's somebody's kid. Nobody wants to see anybody suffering on the street. So it's being a good person, basically.
Yeah, that's right. Kurt, back to you. As law enforcement professionals or code enforcement professionals, is there anything that you wish to see happen that would assist you in addressing the needs of the homeless while also additionally upholding the law? I believe we have this other slide. Yeah.
So one of the things I would like to see is have more options on dealing with what I consider sort of a predatory practice of renting unsatisfactory, unhealthy places to people. They actually run ads and rent lawnmower sheds in the backyard out for $450 a month. They were renting junk cars out and letting people sleep in junk cars, and had a pay scale based on the vehicle, or if it was a minivan, they paid more to stay in the minivan. So I feel like there should be better ways to address that and get the people that have some limited income to a better place of help, to where they could get in something safer.
Right. I know that's key. Major.
I think for me, the Western Piedmont Council, their homeless outreach team, I think it may be a little preliminary to see, but the data and stuff that they're collecting, I know will be paramount in decisions going forward. They cover 4 counties. And so I think that moving forward, one of the things I would like to see is a group that size covering Caldwell County. And so to be able to go out and meet the people where they're at, and not waiting on them to come to them, because the interactions we've had with that group have been terrific. They've conducted ride-alongs with our officers. Our officers take them out and meet the people where they're at, and that's what seems to make a bigger impact.
So in Hudson, we've been fortunate to be a small town. Most of our homeless situations and problems have not been overwhelming to the point to where we're not able to take the time to try to help those individuals and try to get those resources for them. So overall, it's not an overwhelmingly problem in Hudson to the point where I can say for definite that this would help us a lot.
Sure. Benefits of being a small town.
Benefits of having the whole county.
Yeah, what are those benefits?
Honestly, I would like to see more, like Major stated there, more people here in a group, for that to grow. Having somewhere to direct these guys and gals to, the resources. I know Leo's put out a thing this past winter before they shut down, or last winter before they shut down, of all the resources, and gave it to us as law enforcement officers to hand out when we encounter someone in need. And that, just having all that on one simple sheet of paper to hand out to somebody was very beneficial. That way they knew meal times at churches, like Pastor Wilfong did with his warming center, just having information like that on there, because, and that saved lives. People may be against it or, just downplay it, but that saves lives, because otherwise these people would be out here starving and freezing to death.
And I know it is tricky, and I think what we've seen as the homeless response team with the COG, and I know Kurt has the benefit of also covering multiple counties. You see that this is such a transient population. There really are no borders. This is not a Caldwell County problem. This is not a Lenore problem, Hudson, or a Granite problem. This is, everybody has to deal with it, and you can't really, there are no borders when it comes to dealing with homelessness, and we all got to work at it together in one shape or form. Two more questions. Quickly, is there a role that technology can play in assisting law enforcement in addressing homelessness, such as data analytics, predictive policing? Kurt, I'll start with you on this one as well.
So I believe that analytics are crucial to understanding what the problem is. I feel like beyond some small proactive measures that are being taken, I feel like without analytics we can't prepare and do deliberate planning to actually be proactive. We're just more reactive to what's there. We get a call, we get a complaint, we show up, we deal with what's in front of us at all times. We're just currently doing that, so we don't have a deliberate plan. I think to fully understand it, to fully get funding to do something about it, and to fully engage in the homeless issue, we must have to find out what the size and scope of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, data is so important, and in collecting that, where are they coming from, where are they going to, and I think that's some of the benefits of it. At least the 4-county coverage. If you're encountering the people in Caldwell, and you're also encountering in Catawba or Burke, and that migration, and why are they going here, or why are they going there, for what lengths of time. But without that data, how do you take a proactive approach, and how do you get the funding to be able to combat the issue?
So with the data analytics, it's important that, especially the agencies here, are staying connected together. So, and that's using technology in a roundabout way, but with the data that Caldwell County collects, that data is crucial for Hudson, that data is crucial for Lenore. So it's important that when one agency finds a solution to a situation, that same solution could apply to everybody else's situation as well.
One of the things that we've done within the sheriff's office is we found a resource in our CAD reporting system that's in every deputy's vehicle in their mobile data terminal, and it's called a field contact. And those field contacts, they get out with a homeless encampment or some, just in general, it's a twofold sequence there, just walking down the street. They get out, they check their name, ask them where they come from, just chit-chat with them. If they don't want to talk, they just get back in the car and drive off. But get that information from them of what put them in that situation. Our criminal investigations uses it majority of the time to identify if we had a B&E report or damaged property down the street. Well, this deputy dealt with this subject here. It's in the general area and general time of the B&E, but just keeping that data on hand, as they said, is key. That way we can track the people and what their ailment is, and maybe help find more resources to prevent more in the future from becoming homeless.
Yep, I agree with you. Captain, we'll do this as a final question. What role can community members play? What role can community members and organizations play in supporting law enforcement efforts to address homelessness, and how can these partnerships be strengthened?
They can be strengthened by everybody just getting together. The community members, the churches, just like I mentioned, Pastor Wilfong, we can't do it, without them. Our side, our hands are kind of tied in certain situations, but I think it'd be a good thing see law enforcement at these, social gathering of the the misfortunate, so that they don't run from us when we get out, because most people don't want to deal with the law enforcement. You know, they think we're there just to ruin their life and put them in jail, which is not the case. I know, speak for my fellows here on the stage, you know, we took an oath to serve and protect. That's not to hinder people. Sometimes we have to put people in jail, but in general, people getting law enforcement, they are some bad ones, but we get in it to be a help, to leave something better when we get out than we found it. You know, our community members, that's the glue that helps us hold everything together.
Same thing, understanding is key. If the community members can understand what we're trying to accomplish and what resources we actually have to try to accomplish these goals, you know, they may can offer up more help to accomplish these goals, or maybe they understand why we can't do something when they think it's just very easy to do that. Understanding is key, and that's going to naturally grow those relationships.
I think certain things that would benefit community partnerships, whether it be church groups or other organizations, is have that open communication with local municipalities. Church groups like to have food drives or clothing collections or sleeping bag collections, and the answer is not dropping it off, you know, at a corner or a footpath or a parking lot, but yet to have that communication with your local municipalities and say, how can we best do this, that it benefits who they're actually trying to benefit. And so I think we really need to work harder towards those partnerships and that communication between us, law enforcement, and those groups.
I agree with that. I think that's key. Kurt?
Yeah, just to pile on to what they're saying, I think the only way to support the community and local law enforcement is through cooperation, deliberate planning. The independent approach, where everybody does their own thing, is going to garner you the same exact finish that we have today. So if we can all pull together, work collectively, do targeted prevention for homelessness, do outreach, do response, work on the relationship, maintaining a relationship with them with wraparound services that we can get to them, then through communication and cooperation, it will end up working itself out.
In working with each one of your all's departments, Granite Falls included, they're great to work with. The communities, the towns, the managers they work with, I mean, to your point, Major, is that they'll take the calls. If you have a question, call and ask. They're not the bad guys, whether it's law enforcement or anything to do with anything that's in the city or the county. The people that you're hearing today, the fact that you're here talking about this and saying this, it means a lot. So, gentlemen, I truly appreciate everything that you're doing, sharing your time, taking your time to discuss this. This is a tough issue to talk about, but it's so good to see you guys being proactive in your approach, and hopefully some people can listen to this and watch this and get some information and maybe see things a little bit different from your perspective. Again, thank you all for what you do, keeping us safe, and thank you again for your time. Thank you for watching, and we'll be right back.